us as Romanians, we have biases about this country. So you might think, yeah, it's normal that's happening here. I think we kind of lost some hope that things will change faster, and it seems pretty normal to see such examples. Some funny, some sad, because many people end up being stuck in their homes and not being able to fully participate in the community's activities. But the problem is that this is not just at the national level. I mean, even if you look at an international level, at events such as the Venice Architecture Biennale, you can still see that accessibility is not fully understood, or at least not in a humane way. And for me, for example, when I was doing my architecture school years, I was taught that this is kind of like the biggest event in architecture world, the most important. So as you might think, I was really disappointed in 2021 when, ironically, the topic was how will we live together, to see accessibility treated like this in the pavilions. This is one example from the Netherlands pavilion, where we have an exhibition about mothers in public spaces. It had all the buzzwords like queer, diversity, responsibility, inclusive, everything was there. But if you looked a bit closer, mothers were invited in the pavilion through the emergency exit, because the main entrance in the pavilion is very important with stairs, and they did not want to ruin it by treating the accessibility issue. So I think you're not really welcome when you have to enter through the exit. Then you also have Great Britain's example. Even in the photo you can see somebody in a wheelchair waiting in front of the pavilion, and I actually asked the person which was the issue. And the thing is, not that they did not treat the accessibility part, is how they treated it. All the pavilions at the Biennale have this really proud sign that says the exhibition area is fully accessible. Maybe Biennale got the mic. Emil, I hope you're not upset for talking about the Biennale. Okay, so the sign says the exhibition area is fully accessible thanks to the presence of a stair lift. But you will see on the right side that the stair lift is covered and dusty, and it just screams welcome while you join your friends in the middle of the exhibition. So, as you might see, it's not just here in Romania where maybe you think that we are a third world country or that we are far behind. There still is a really big tension between architects, designers, and activists for the rights of people with disabilities, even in countries like the US or UK that have been doing this for more than 50 years. And the thing is that accessibility and inclusion, although they are really fashionable terms, they are still not part of the design process. They are seen as special cases, and they are treated as such. That's why accessibility solutions or something similar like that usually develop in parallel with architecture projects. And I used to see them the same way. I mean, during architecture school, especially regarding accessibility. Until the last year of my architecture school, while I was looking for my diploma topic, I was living in a neighborhood in Bucharest that has a big history related to people with visual disabilities. And while I was taking a walk through the park, I noticed a couple of blind people taking their baby in a stroller. They were taking a walk through the park. And that was my aha moment, the moment I realized that in the 6 years of architecture school, I never once discussed with my colleagues or teachers, how do you design in lack of sight or for somebody who cannot see? Especially because during that time, there was a really big emphasis on how our projects look like, how our models look like, and we never really discussed of the relationship with other senses. And usually, the topic of accessibility was actually about retrofitting, and it was at the end of the project, just as a ramp that was really not being welcomed by all of us. I mean, it seemed like it was ruining all our projects. So this is the kind of attitude we kind of grew to have towards accessibility. But I started to wonder why we'd never discussed about empathy or human diversity or how our needs change throughout our lives. And I got out of my social bubble and started to do research. First, get in contact with NGOs that fight for the rights of people with disabilities in Romania, and quickly found out that if you could represent the situation in Romania, the social segregation is so big that you can actually say that there are two different worlds, the world of people with disabilities and the world of people without. And this segregation actually causes a lot of social isolation, and it's an isolation phenomenon that people with permanent disabilities face here. And this is due to at least two reasons. One is the subjective reason, which is related to the attitudes of people without disabilities towards people with disabilities. Because the segregation is so big, then people without disabilities do not know how to interact. They tend to take too much pity on the person, or they are afraid to talk to the person, or they completely ignore the person and the topic of disabilities. So as you might think, it's not a very pleasant atmosphere of communication. And then you have my favorite reason, and why we started AMAIS in 2015, that's related to the objective reason, the unfriendly built environment, which most of the times can become completely inaccessible. Space is a really powerful instrument that can limit or amplify your abilities. It can create disabilities where there is no certificate that the state says that you have one. So, as I said, in 2015 we started AMAIS, which is an NGO that builds an equitable society for people with permanent, temporary, or contextual disabilities by applying the principles of inclusive design in three directions: architecture, technology, and the social projects. But all these three directions have this main thing in common, the idea of social contexts of interaction. Because we cannot rely on fate, as I had my aha moment, for other people to keep having them. We are trying to either facilitate them or build them or create them. Because if we want to improve the built environment, we first need to change our mentalities related to this topic of accessibility. So this brings me to the how. How did we write this book, and why did we choose to do it like this? We are really faithful to the idea of practice what you preach. So in order to write a book on inclusive design, we wanted to have an inclusive process of writing it, not just have our perspective on the topic for the book. So for this, we actually organized the most complex social context of interaction that we have had till now. It was called the Empathy Retreat. And last year we brought together 32 people from different social and professional categories, and we stayed together for 5 days to, first of all, try to understand our biases related to the topic of accessibility, and for the last day to actually understand what accessibility is. So this is a photo with the participants from last year. It's still very emotional to see these images. It was a very powerful, and it was filled with emotion, this experience that we had. The Empathy Retreat was organized in 3 main days. The first one was listen and share, because the first step was trying to create the group's cohesion. There were people who did not know each other. The youngest one was 2 years old, the oldest was 70, and they were architects, urban planners, public administration, activists, all of them with visual disabilities, hearing disabilities, locomotory, from the queer spectrum, neurodivergent. It was a really big diversity of people. So the first day, Listen and Share, was the one where they actually had the chance to tell their stories and to find common grounds in exclusion. Because if you want to understand inclusion, you have to start from this situation where you have been excluded, so you can start to empathize. But besides that, they also discovered their biases that they had related to certain stereotypes or certain categories and so on. The second day, which was the empirical one, was called Experience, and they were divided in teams of 5 and 6 people, or 6 people, and they had the same objectives that they had to get to. It was a trail through Sibiu, which is a historical town in Romania, a pretty well-known one actually, and all of them, each team had one certain objective to focus on. And this way, they actually experienced some obstacles that they have discussed the day before, whether it was physical obstacles or social, related to attitudes and so on. This day was extremely powerful. People came back enraged. Some were really sad, but they were also determined to find out what they could do to change this situation that we are in. And the last day, this was the most important one, because ever since we've started doing this, we noticed that there are a lot of biases and misconceptions about accessibility and inclusive design. So we brought them for 2 days first, so they can be ready to give up on the biases that they had and be ready to listen to what inclusive design is, and not focus on solutions, but on the process of understanding human needs and how our abilities change, and why do we need to involve people in understanding the problems and finding the solutions. So this was the day when we had a theoretical talk about these topics. They also had presentations. They've done their own accessibility analysis on the trail that they had and the specific objectives. But this was also very important for us, because this was the day when we discussed with them, what should an inclusive design guide have? What should it contain? And how is it seen by people? So this takes me to what. What is the result? It's the book, it's inclusive design. We found out from them what's the perception on the guide and what do people want from this type of book. And this book is actually started from the stories of the people who are invisible, who are missed, who are different from the standard and the norms that we are taught in architecture school that we design for. People for whom built environment can actually feel like a set of closed doors daily or a set of obstacles. The book is a combination of a series of essays from the participants in the empathy retreat that present their experience related to empathy, human diversity, accessibility from very different perspectives, both professionally and socially. And it's also combined with our professional experiences related to this topic. As I was saying this morning, that most of the times we look for solutions. This book does not offer solutions. This book is a collective manifest that is supposed to remind us of the responsibility that we have as architects, designers, urban planners towards the community. It's an invitation for dialogue, and it's also an encouragement to start to change our mentalities about this topic, to discover our biases, and be more emphatic related to the needs of the people around us. It was really important for us to have a book that's in Romanian, because we have, as Yamin said, we have no resources like this in Romania. But we knew that publishing a book meant that it would not be accessible for everybody. So we also created the website include.amais.ro. It has information in English and in Romanian, and it's basic info about accessibility, about inclusive design, about retrofitting. It has all the things that you might need if you want to start to do research on this topic. And also it has stories from people who have been in the empathy retreat, and we keep on adding stories related to the interaction with the built environment and how it can create exclusion, regardless of whether we have or not disabilities. And now I would like to invite my colleague, Mihaela Șeban. She was one of the participants in the camp. She was there not as an organizer, but as a participant. And she will read one of her essay from the book.